The Alfa Romeo history and pedigree speaks for itself. They have been in the racing scene way before Ferrari. In 1910, 1911, 1912. Every time you go on the cockpit and hold the steering wheel, it gives you a lot of excitement. It's very different. Hi everyone, my name is Jerome. I'm self-employed and I own an Alfa Romeo GT. Back in 2001, I attended the Singapore Motor Show and I saw the Alfa Romeo GTV. That car really caught my eye. I still remember the colour, the shape of the car and the lines of the car that caught my eyes, and I still vividly remember taking nice pictures with the car until today. So that started my journey with Alfa Romeo. Ever since the motor show, the Alfa Romeo that caught my eye, the dream of owning an Alfa Romeo has always been in my mind, and I worked very hard towards it. So I began searching and researching about the cars, and then in 2008 I spotted Alfa Romeo 147. At that point of time, the car is already pretty rare. On top of that is a manual gearbox. So the 147 that I own commute between Singapore and KL with that car when I was based in KL. So I drove the Singapore plate Alfa Romeo 147 in terrible conditions in the traffic, and also very nice countryside drive, B-road drive. Even though it's a 1.6 naturally aspirated engine, it's proven that on the North-South Highway it still can perform at its peak. So the twin-spark engine is a naturally aspirated engine developed by Alfa Romeos, and interestingly, 2-spark plug per cylinder. So these 2-spark plugs are symmetrically placed vertically along. The engine is ignited, right? The 2-spark plug actually works together to combust. It sort of gives you a very emotional drive, very responsive. At the point of time, the car was very fun to drive. Being a hatchback gives me a lot of confidence when navigating Genting Highlands. So that was one of my most memorable cars that I ever owned. Yeah, so my journey with the 147 ended when I spotted Alfa Romeo GT. The GT has always been something that I dreamed to own because of the GTV that caught my eye. The car itself and the GT looks pretty similar, and yet it shares a lot of platform on the 147. So it's also like coming home to another car that I'm so used to. The design of the Alfa Romeo GT is by a company called Bertone. The company itself has developed many interesting cars. Just to name a few, the Alfa Romeo Montreal is one of them, the Lancia Stratos, and also the Lamborghini Miura, which is the first supercar using the rear meat engine. So the Alfa Grille, the iconic Alfa Grille, it's they call it the Scudetto. The Scudetto, if you watch football, Italian Serie A, they always say that they want to win the Scudetto, which is their champion for their premiership. So how the design looks like is a V, and it looks like you're holding on to a cup and you're raising the cup. The GT was already a very rare car in Singapore, and to come across a manual one has always been very difficult. So when I chance upon it, I have to take the leap of faith, and there's no way I can find another car. So I scrapped the 147, I switched to the Alfa Romeo GT. When I took over the car in 2018, the car has already, I think, 4 or 5 owners, and the mileage was 150,000 thereabout. It was a very emotional decision. So I just went in and bought the car and didn't care about the mechanics, because coming from a 147 that has not given me much problems, right? And being a manual gearbox, I just went in and I trusted the twin-spark engine. So I bought the car, and then that's where some of the nightmare begins. I remember once driving up to KL, the engine failed on me. In the North-South Highway, I was stranded. It was somewhere near Seremban. So one of the towing truck came along, and the car was being towed to a dodgy workshop. So I have to make my way to KL and then come back to Singapore, because they took maybe about 2 weeks to work on the car. The experience was quite mind-blowing, because I remember taking a coach up to Seremban to collect the car after 2 weeks. The guy who worked on the car told me to drive slowly back to Singapore. So I made my way back to Singapore. I think after 2 weeks, the engine failed on me. So there's no choice but to get another engine. And the bill was quite extensive and quite enormous to swallow. So we changed another engine. That's on top of all the other mechanical problems the car came with, electrical problem, clutch failures, oil temperature, oil sump, oil sensor. So that one was quite an experience of owning the Alfa. There are a bunch of guys who are very passionate about Alfa Romeo. So one of the more active one is called the Serpent Speed. Through that club, I start to learn a lot more things. I learn a lot more about the car. And that's kind of helped in terms of the whole ownership experience, because through that community, right, a lot of things that were tried and tested has already been tested by some of the other guys. You name it, they have tested everything, including the DIYs to even to the smallest details. Through the Serpent Speed, I get to know another guy who owns another GT, the one I currently own. We had a drive up to KL together with the club. So we chatted a lot about the cars. We chatted about a lot of passion of on other interests that we have. And we sort of bonded through that trip. They own the GT, they are the first owner, and the dad passed on to him. They knew about my passion on the car and the GT. So when the car was available for sale, they actually approached me to see if I'm keen to take over. And to be honest, when I took over the car was already 12 years. I renewed the COE, and the mileage was already 382,000 already. And it's quite enormous for a car that's of that age. The car itself seats 3 at the back, and also has a Grand Tourer opening on the boot. I'm a cyclist, so when I drop the seats, I can even put 2 road bikes without removing the wheels in the car. So that's how practical the car is. It's a practical sports coupe that can be driven daily, even with an active lifestyle, or even having families that you need to ferry in a normal sports car. After taking over the car, I mean, we still have the wear and tear, but I don't face any major issues with the car. The mileage now is an astonishing 429,000. So it's proven that if the car is being well taken care of, it's actually pretty reliable for even an Alfa, which always known to be an unreliable car. For car enthusiasts, right, I think the Alfa Romeo brand has always been overlooked by many. Most of them go for the German marks, but I think essentially the car itself has a lot of heritage to the car, and I think when you have a chance to give it a shot, because like what Jeremy Clarkson say, you can't be a true petrol head if you have never owned an Alfa Romeo.
Thank you for watching another episode of ZHNGTV Stories. If you have a story you would like to share with the community, do drop us a DM on our Facebook, Instagram, or just comment down below in the YouTube section. We'll see you soon.